we have Josh Sagman in here. Or
What's
do
up?
you like Josh or Joshua?
Josh is good.
Joshua's more like the professional.
Yeah,
thing,
Joshua's when I've got to meet with a little bit of an older clientele. I'm Joshua D. Sagman, the Jew. Nice to meet you. It's all good.
And then when you're with younger people, it's, what's up? It's Josh.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you're saying you were born in Maryland, or you grew up in Maryland?
Yeah, I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area, and at 18 I graduated high school and went to Syracuse up in New York. So
you
did
had
the
fun
whole
there, right?
Yeah, it was a good time. So did the whole Washington, D.C., Maryland thing until 18, Syracuse, New York thing, then obviously graduated, went to the city like everyone else, did a bunch of stuff in the city, did a lot of stuff in the Hamptons, and then actually moved down here to South Florida in 2002.
How was the Hamptons?
It was good. I mean, we had our little 5 minutes of fame in the Hamptons.
Stern lives there, right?
Yeah,
Howard Stern?
yeah. Well, so this is going back, wow, it's going to date me, but this is going back to about 2001, 2002, right before we ended up moving down here. And our concept was we owned a little website called summerinthehamptons.com. And we started off renting houses in the Hamptons, and it basically grew to where we were buying houses in the Hamptons. And we'd pack the houses with 30 to 40 people, charging each of them anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000, depending how many weekends they wanted to come out.
Yeah.
And had a nice little enterprise going, because at first when we were renting them for, we'd rent a house in the Hamptons for, let's say, $60,000 for the summer.
Yeah.
And we said to ourselves, you know what, for 80 to 90, we can buy a $700,000 house. So we created a little business there, but our problem was, this is a little how would I say this? I'm trying to think the best way to say this. This was Kardashians. This was pre all the the reality shows.
Yeah.
And a lady came up to us and was like, "Look, we want to film you. We want to film you for a reality show."
Really? What year is this?
They filmed us in '99.
Really? Wow.
And the show was called The Hamptons.
Yeah.
So they started with 20 people. They narrowed it down to 10 people. Those 10 people ended up being Paris and Nikki Hilton.
Oh, boy.
It was Billy Joel's daughter. It was Puffy and his whole little group. They had a girl looking for true love in the Hamptons, a couple of Irish workers, and myself and my timeshare group.
So you have all these people and then you.
Yeah.
It doesn't really fit
with... It fit, but we were the energy of it. And the crazy part is, and this is the end of the story where it got kind of nuts, was this is pre-reality shows. So for us, we were kind of like the first people to go out there, and like every weekend for the whole summer we had film crews. And they'd be following us, and we'd be doing different things, and like whether it was skydiving or going to a little place called Neptune's. I don't know if you remember Neptune's back in the day, or whatever it was. And it was kind of cool, but what happened was our business was growing. So the show came out, and we were basically like the poster childs for what they didn't want in the Hamptons. We're 23 years old. Opening scene is girls in the jacuzzi and, keg stands and, everything else. So the show comes out, and there's a little rule in the Hamptons that says you're only allowed 5 unrelated guests per single family house. And this is from years ago. This was from when they did brothels, and they literally 1920s, but they used it to shut down houses. So long story short, we became basically the poster child for what they didn't want in the Hamptons. And, of course, every day I would wake up and I'd be on page 6 in the paper, and it would be like, hunky singer-songwriter Pete Yorn was best friends with beer-chugging chucklehead Josh Sagman from the Hamptons.
Yeah.
And Pete was a little, it was every day.
But at the same time, that helps your business, though, because it gets you out there, right? I would think.
It helped my marketing business.
Yeah.
But the Hamptons house business, the city came down on us.
Okay.
So literally the next summer, we came in, and they had, they were videotaping us, and the police were shutting us down, and they were making this big ordeal, and it became a big they shut down one of our houses.
Really?
They were going to shut down another house. So we had to get creative, and long story short, first thing I did out of the gate was I was like, what do we do with this? And I hired a great attorney, this guy, Harvey Slovis, up in New York, and he's like, let me think about it. He did a lot of work with Tommy Lee Jones and other people.
Yeah, I've heard that name before.
And he basically came back and he said, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to sue the city of Southampton, and the county of Suffolk and the state of New York for selective prosecution. So we're going to basically say, if you're going to come after my client, you've got to go after everybody
else.
that owns these timeshares. And once again, all the judges own timeshares out there, everybody else so we'll just say we had a little plea bargain, and we shut down summerinthehamptons.com. And,
and then you started buying them, right?
And then, we owned them. I mean, that was one. Yeah, we had to sell one of them, and we mixed and matched, so that was one venture in New York.
And the summer is how long? What's that considered?
Summer in the Hamptons back then went from around May until, pretty much I would say, when I say May, Memorial Day weekend until Labor Day. And the way we would sell them is we'd sell full season, a full season. You could have a room and a bed for $5,000.
So you're getting a solid 4 months.
A solid, yeah, more or less. I mean, you'd start, June really was when it would pick up. Mm-hmm. July it would get busier. And then August was when it was really kicking. And then by September, done. Everyone would go back to Manhattan.
And then you just sit and wait for the next year?
Yeah, and then we'd sit for the next year. And then and we were building it, but obviously, as I said, there was a little law that
that popped in.
Yeah, when we were on a TV show that 9 million people watched. It was ABC television.
It was on ABC?
It was on ABC, and back then there was only 5 stations. It was ABC, NBC, Fox. It wasn't the whole conglomerate of cable.
So I would have thought VH1. I thought it would have been on VH1.
But back then, but this is 2009.
It was a long time ago.
I mean, it was like we were up against we were the number 2 watch show against the, the NBA playoffs.
Really?
Yeah, because they were running at like the same time when we ran. We ran like beginning of the summer, after the summer they filmed us. And we had the whole Lizzie Grubman thing. I don't know if you remember that.
So it was the playoffs and then you guys?
Yeah. I mean, they had like 16, whatever million it was. We were 9 million something. Like when you look at the view things, I'm like, it's hard because you have so many stations.
Yeah.
So, but we were up there back then.
If I was number 2 after the NBA playoffs, you better get a pin and pop my head. Even though I would try to control it.
Oh, look, I was loving it because back then I was single, I wasn't married, I was walking around like, hey, but
hey, look what I did. Yeah. So then you do that, and then it's time to go.
I'd always had my hands in. We'd always been entrepreneurs. So at that point, we had oxygen bars. I don't know if you ever done the oxygen bars.
I haven't done it, but I had
in Vegas. So we had exclusive rights with oxygen bars in the city. So we were everywhere from World, and then we went into Boston and worked with the Avalon Group, and then we cut a deal with Bacardi. So we were doing orange flavored oxygen at all their launches.
And how do you cut these deals?
A lot is just a lot's networking, entrepreneurial spirit. Like if we see something, I was always good about putting the right people together. And back then, I had 2 partners. One of them was Jason Kovar and another was Brandon Estrin. Jason Kovar was actually a fraternity brother of mine up from Syracuse. And Brandon's father was my mentor, rest his soul, Mel Estrin. It was like a father figure to me.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is fine. But yeah, he was the one that kind of steered us in the right directions. So
you would basically get an idea or see an opening, and then you would grab it, cut the deal, put the right people around you. Then you're kind of in the background, let them do like kind of the legwork, and then you come in when needed?
Kind of with that. Well, I guess I should back up. It all started in high school.
Okay.
So in high school, we were basically the promoters. Back then there was no internet. A lot of the young millennials, they don't realize that like the way we'd promote something was we'd do 5,000 flyers. We'd have a street team of 10 people and we'd be passing them out, whether it was Lollapalooza or events. So in D.C., when I was a junior in high school, I rented out a nightclub. And our deal, it was Thursday nights, and our deal was we took the door, they took the bar. In D.C. back then, it was 18 and over, so, but then it turned 21. But, I mean, there was a place you could go and get an ID and then come next door to our club. So
ID and a 20. And yeah.
So we did a thing called Spy Club, and that's where it all started. It was Spy Club, and we would do 1,000 kids. And the thing which was interesting about it was Thursday was kind of college night. I mean, it was really high school college night, but we would charge $10 a person, So in high school, we're making, $5,000 or $6,000 a week cash.
Yeah, you're killing it.
And I'd have to wake up for high school in the morning.
Yeah, that was fun.
So that's how I kind of started with the entrepreneur. I took all my best friends. We all had a kind of, I ran it, but then everybody would pass out flyers and do different things with it. So that was good for junior, senior year of high school. And then I went to college. I went to Syracuse. And in Syracuse, I took that same mentality, but I took it to the next level. So the next level was my roommate in college was a big basketball player up there. And there was one nightclub basically in town, but it was away from the university. So what I did was I said, look, we're going to create an event and bring people from the university to this nightclub. So I rented a bus company. So we had 5 buses, and the buses would go to every dorm, and it would go to every fraternity and every sorority and bring them there. Then we called it the Spot. So we imported a spotlight from Rochester, like an hour and a half away.
Sick. And this is all your idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, over the eBay, yeah.
Yeah,
So that was my college job.
Yeah.
So, and that was every Friday we did the Spot. So then when we got so big with the Spot, we ended up renting out a place called the Sheridan. The Sheridan was on campus, and so the Spot was everything. The Spot would have a hip hop room, a house room, but because a lot of my really good friends played on the sports teams, we ended up doing a hip hop night. So on Thursday nights, it was all hip hop, and we do 400 or 500 people on the campus at the Sheridan. And then on Friday nights, we would do Friday nights would be the Spot, and we'd bring in performers. I mean, we brought in Run DMC, Crystal Waters, like different types of people along that lines to perform like one hit wonders. A lot of DJs, house DJs back then was taking off with the whole rave scene.
Yeah, big rave time then. You must have had to peel the girls off of you.
Well, I was lucky because, as I said, my roommates played basketball, and I won't confirm nor deny 7 out of 8 cheerleaders, but no, I'm joking.
Hey, I'll take those odds.
But we had a nice little run at Syracuse, and then from there I went to New York with kind of like still marketing and still promoting, but expanding. As I said, we got into the oxygen bars, we got into the houses in the Hamptons, but I never actually like physically owned a restaurant or a bar until a guy by the name of Frank Cilione came and said, hey, we've got this great project in Palm Beach County. Would you be interested?
But you were in Philly for a while, or you just drove to Philly?
Well, Philly, we would go down, like, Philly, like, as I said, because we were dialed in, like, Donovan McNabb was a friend. So, like, he had his 30th birthday party at that place, World Cafe.
This guy is the biggest Philly guy.
Philly?
He's from Philly. He's got his back is the Eagles.
Oh, really? Oh, nice. Yeah. I mean,
he worked for NBC and Fox. And what was that episode? What was the one you did with the crazy guy?
The Kids for Cash.
He did the Kids for Cash. Remember that?
That was the 2 judges that
Yeah.
away for kickbacks, and we covered that when I was in the news up there, and then came down here and worked locally.
Was that the one with the picture that you sent me of you in the newspaper?
That was that one, and then I have the.
He's got that big, the big old camcorder.
And the Catch Me Outside girl.
That's
the other
great.
The Catch Me Outside girl. You know what that is?
Yeah, of course. She's from here. She's about a mile down the road.
Yeah.
I don't know what that one is.
Oh, she was like some like white trailer park type. Like, that was a good one. That's funny. We have a lot of ones here in town. Like now that you're here, I mean, everywhere you walk, you'll see something interesting in Florida.
When I moved down here, because up there where we are, Jersey and Philly.
Yeah.
First off, I couldn't believe the speeding, how fast you can drive down here. Because in Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, 5-6 miles an hour, you're done.
Yeah.
Here, these guys at 65, they're going 90 and right by a cop.
Yeah.
That blew my mind.
Yeah.
Then the second thing, the first week I was here, I couldn't believe how fast people were driving. Then I walked into a Publix, like a higher-end grocery store in Florida, if you don't know what it is. And I see these like people, and they're all messed up. Older women. I mean, they're on something. I mean, I don't know what they're on.
Write down Stephen Cohen. That's the attorney you're going to want to know here in Palm Beach County. And if you ever have a run-in, you will want to call Mr. Cohen, and you'll be good to go. And shout out to my friend Rocco with Rocco's Tacos because he introduced me to Mr. Cohen.
Shout out to Rocco's Tacos. Good place.
So,
I couldn't believe all these girls. Like, it would be young girls, middle-aged women, older women, just cracked out in Publix.
Yeah.
Didn't even know where they were. I couldn't. And up north, you don't see things like that very often.
It's that Florida. How do I say it? I almost say a lot of times it's like a train. Here. Yeah. It really is. It's like a lot of people hop on that train someplace, especially now with everything going on, and they come down to Florida. They get off the train. Who knows what they're going to do when they're here? Because there aren't a lot of jobs, but they'll, as you said, hang out at Publix, do other things, but then they get back on that train and go back home within a certain period of time. That's why I'm kind of like, I've been here since 2002. That's a long time to be in Florida. And, the hardest thing I find for Florida is, obviously you were established elsewhere and came down here and do your thing. But in Florida, there aren't a lot of jobs. Mm-hmm. And where we live in Palm Beach County, I always ask the question and see if you guys know. Do you know what, like, I'll say 2 of the 3 largest employers are in Palm Beach County? It's
what would you say, Rob? Take a wild guess.
I don't know. 2 of the 3 largest employers.
Yep.
It's all service.
I don't know.
So Florida Crystals, which is, sugar, and the
Yeah.
Breakers.
The Breakers.
And that's a hotel.
Yeah.
It's just we don't have like Philly, New York, D.C., like have big businesses. They have, millennials, different age groups can come down and work. Here, you either have to be established from someplace else or you're going to go into the service industry because there's not a lot of things.
Which is kind of coming to an end.
Well, and it is, but, and that leads to, my second life, which we'll get to with selling businesses, which has been amazing. But yeah, so when I moved here in 2002, we opened up a place called Tsunami and Hotel Resort, which was in City Place. We were the first like New York City, Philly type nightclub here. Like we walked in and we said, okay, we were 7,200 square feet. And we were like, you get in, you don't get in. You have a black card, you're in. Everybody else knows.
That's awesome.
Every night we'd have 100 people outside,
Yeah.
We used to bring this guy, DJ Irie, a big Miami DJ up. And we go back so far that we would have crates of records. So when he would come up, he'd have his driver and we'd have to carry his crates in. And we just made it fun and hip here. I mean, when we launched the gay night, for example, we brought in RuPaul.
Yeah.
So RuPaul came, and I'll never forget, we paid $10,000 for RuPaul. And the rider was another like $15,000. So it was basically like she needed peach-colored gobos, like a suite at the Breakers. It was ridiculous.
But I bet you made a killing on that gay night.
Yeah, well, we did for the first 3 weeks. But then after 3 weeks, the problem was Florida's a very fickle area. You know what I mean? It's like, but yeah, we did well. That was our Sundays. And then we had a nice little thing going with the clubs and the restaurants. And it's all about networking. I was lucky enough to meet a gentleman by the name of Bob Johnson. Bob founded BET. He was the first black billionaire. Yeah. And became a good friend of mine. And then he was opening a supper club.
Now, how'd you meet him?
Just through networking.
Just networking?
And through, just through networking and different people. When I came down, one of the other things I did was, because I always had that event mentality, was I started a little party called Sundays at the Players Club. The Players Club's in Wellington. A lot of people know Wellington, and they don't. Wellington's like the horse capital of the world.
Yeah, like I know, Glenn Schwab?
Yeah, I know Glenn.
Yeah, I used to hang out with him all the time.
I was on Glenn's yacht New Year's. So
Right.
we were at Mara Lago, and then somehow I ended up on Glenn's
black
yacht.
Bentley that he falls asleep in when he's driving?
I mean, probably. Black Bentley, a bunch of young women, typical Glenn. But Glenn's a great guy.
Nicodemo tried to take him down.
Yeah.
Jessica Nicodemo.
I know her also. So,
and what's the other one? Jenna.
Yeah.
Jenna Nicodemo. She's like lost in California or something.
Yeah, I mean, once again, Glenn's Glenn.
Yeah.
I just saw him the other night, and he comes to Meat Market every Thursday.
What a hell of a move he made on that Renegade, though. What a move.
Yeah. He's a smart guy. I'm not saying I mean, he knows what he's doing with that stuff.
He went there. What did he pay? $80 million for it?
Something
and then
like that,
I'm going to turn it into a water park, blah, 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 blah. Bring the hype up.
Yeah.
And then I think it was like an MGM or one of those companies came in and bought it for what, $300-400 million? And he didn't even touch it.
That's what he does. I mean, he owns Polo Club out south. Yeah. I mean, it's you're going to have the people that like Glenn and the people that have issues with Glenn. I have no issues with. I don't have issues with much, man.
No, I like Glenn.
Yeah.
I don't like him when he's driving and falls asleep in his Bentley.
See, I've never been with that's a little too close. I'll see Glenn. I saw him on Sunday at Polo.
Yeah.
So, at Polo, we all sat at a table. We hung out. Like, I like Glenn. We were supposed to play tennis. I guess he plays tennis with his player all the time, and I started playing. But
he's playing tennis?
Yeah, that's his latest.
Is that the new thing?
I guess,
Yeah, we used to go to dinner, and he'd be like, no, I'll pick you up. Okay, Glenn. Okay, fine. And I'm like, and then we would be out. He'd have a couple drinks, and I'm like, oh God, am I gonna die on my way back? Shout out to Glenn.
Yeah, no, I've never been that close. I'm normally like, all right, I have my driver, Glenn. You have your driver. We'll meet you.
Right. Well, after that was the end of that. Never got in that fucking car again.
That's great.
So now you moved down here.
Yeah.
And you have networking.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you open the club.
So Players Club is what I was getting at, which you'll like,
Yeah.
because this was kind of how I got into that whole Wellington crowd. I had the nightclub here, and the one thing that I noticed was that the horse riders in Wellington and the polo players would ride Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then on Sunday they was kind of like their Grand Prix. They would do jumping, they would do pole, they would do all this other stuff. But at night they would go out, but there was no New York, DC mentality. So we basically went to a really good friend who I ended up becoming another mentor of mine, Neil Hirsch, and said, hey, we want to come in and we want to do a door policy. We want to start dictating who comes, who goes, what, everything that happens, and we want to create this massive event. So we created a little party called Sundays at Players Club. And when I tell you, whether it's a Madonna that came through or a lot of everybody that was anybody was there.
Because you weren't letting the crumb in.
No,
See, I like that because then you don't have any problems.
That's false.
It's
That's
clean.
False. They let me in one time.
Yeah, and then Biggie almost put him in the trash can. So Biggie was one of my. It was me and Topher, Grubb, and Biggie were the three.
Yeah.
And what did you say to Biggie that time? What was the situation? Were you passing out flyers or?
I don't know. They found one of my flyers. I was a stupid hotshot promoter back then. They found one of my flyers in their club. Biggie's like, I'm gonna throw you in a trash can. I was like, I'm from a trash can. It's gonna throw me in
I'm
there.
from a trash can.
Yeah. This is like I was probably like 17, 18. I don't know.
Yeah.
You're at the Players Club.
Oh man. It was
Which
awesome. Everyone
everybody's
was at the
loaded in
Players
there.
Club.
And you're saying that you're from a trash can?
Oh,
No.
these guys are all what
I know
what
what
we
they
say
are.
like,
I know. I used to go there with
these
Glenn.
guys are all from money, like I'm like, oh yeah, I'm from a I thought that'd be
It
cool
was
to
funny.
say.
No, those everybody's in. I went there with Glenn
Oh,
before.
yeah.
I got in.
Even though I was
And
born in Italy,
everybody's
I grew up in
nice
Boynton
and
Beach, so
kind.
I was like, I'm from a trash can. Throw me in a trash can.
Well, no, look, what I've respected about Sean is he's one of the hardest working guys down here. And I mean that. He was just young. And when you're young, sometimes Sean can be a little arrogant sometimes. He just doesn't get it. ADHD. So definitely ADHD.
Thank you. Thank you, Josh.
He would sometimes with the club, he would just say things that he probably shouldn't have said.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
So
No. I don't believe that.
but it was good time. So Players Club was long story short, anybody that's what up until 2 years ago when they knocked it down.
Yeah.
So literally we had almost a 20-year run. And when I talk about numbers, I mean, we would do, $700,000 over 18 weeks, one night a week.
Oh, I believe it.
So,
100%.
I mean, we'd have New Year's that we would do 130 bottles.
Oh yeah.
We would sell VIP tables for $5,000, $10,000 sometimes.
Yeah.
Like we'd have people come in and rent. It was ridiculous because Wellington has more billionaires
Yep.
than Palm Beach.
Yep. Everybody says Palm Beach.
Yeah.
But the money
Yeah.
is Wellington. It just looks more glamorous
Yeah.
here in
Yeah.
Palm Beach. But that money, man, when I used to be with Glenn, I used to see these guys. I'd be like, damn,
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
guys
It's-
like you.
Well, it's Wellington's more girls, which is
Yeah,
great. It's horse money. It's like
Yeah.
if a daughter is riding her horse in New York City or riding it in Podunk or wherever it is, and she gets good at it, she wants a pony. So then when she gets really good at it, where are you going to go? You're going to come to Wellington.
Yeah.
So the next thing you know, the dads are paying
Yep. For
X
the
amount-
horse.
yeah, for
the
the
land
horse.
for the horse.
For,
the food
yeah,
for the
oh.
horse. The trainer for the
Yeah.
girl on the horse.
Yeah, so
Oh, yeah.
that becomes the big funny thing down here. So Wellington but now back then it was big. Now it's like international and
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing. So yeah, so from there, as I said, I took a little break. I still had the club, so I had a little equity when I first came here. In hotel, which was not hotel, in resort. I had a little equity. I left to go up and help Bob Johnson open up a big supper club in D.C. called Posh, where I was from, and it was like coming back, and of course, and not anything, but when I left, resort closed. So 2 years later, me and one of my best friends, actually best man at my wedding, Tommy Finneran, came and bought the club and rebranded it as Hotel Nightclub. And that's when I was saying we had another run, because with nightclubs, you get a 2-3 year run,
Yeah.
and then someone else's. So we had the 2-3 year run. I bounced, up north, had a really successful opening with Posh, once again, because Bob, who was one of my mentors, made it so we would have, BET honors and, all of his friends would come in, and it was good. We had a nice little supper club look and feel. of it.
So it was actually a club and a hotel all in one?
No, it was a restaurant and a supper club.
Oh, okay.
But what we did, which was creative, and once again, you're always seeing things. Is have you ever been to Cafe Moderano's down in Fort Lauderdale?
Yeah.
So Steve Moderano does a great job with those video clips. So we did kind of the video clips, but built it more into where he's doing full movies, and we would do like the Anima House scene where he, or that kind of stuff. We were doing funny, the scene in Ray where he starts singing, and so we would do that. So you'd be eating, and then all of a sudden it would come up on the screen, and you'd see a quick little clip, and then go back to eating. And our chef was Tom Clancy's chef, the writer, Tom Clancy.
Yeah.
So we ended up having a celebrity chef down there before celebrity chefs were celebrity chefs.
I think Jordan Belfort wrote his, The Wolf of Wall Street. I think he read a bunch of Tom Clancy's books and wrote his book based off of that type of writing.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was doing that.
Absolutely. So then I came back, and I haven't left since, but that was that whole nightclub thing. And then from there I got into marketing, and it was just because we had our run with the nightclubs, and I was like, you know what, I'd rather be on the other side. And I, through my connections, I landed a couple of good clients. My first real client was a good friends of mine were Warren Henry. They owned a bunch of dealerships down south, and they ended up buying Lamborghini Palm Beach. So they wanted to get strategic with Lamborghinis, which was great. The other one, and this is another great, I'll say, one of our claims to fame, is a little vodka company.
I know. I saw.
We couldn't give it away back then, you guys. Like literally, we couldn't give it away.
I want to ask you about the Lamborghini and the Titos. So I used to go to Manhattan Motor Cars.
Yeah.
There was a guy named Walter. I don't know if you know who Walter is.
I think I know his son. Does he have a son? Wait, let me see what.
Yeah, back then I was buying Aventadors. Why did they stop making the Aventador? Or not the Aventador, the Gallardo. Why did they stop making the Gallardo? They replaced it with the Huracan.
Look, I was a marketing guy, but I'll tell you, the Aventador we did the launch at Mara Lago, which was far, so we did the official launch of the Aventador. We had Helio Castroneves come in.
Jesus.
And Trump was there, and he was involved with it. But Lamborghini was a fun. We did these holiday events. There's some good stories with them, but I don't know enough about. I know enough about them. Like part of the thing which was great with Warren Henry and everybody was that I could drive them.
Yeah,
so we
awesome.
without having to back them up. But we had some good times with it.
I'm trying to show you Walter to see if you know him. I bet you know him. But I never understood that. Why in the hell they stopped making it?
Yeah, well, John Tamarian, I don't know if you know John, but John's a big local guy that started a big car, and he was another, like a car nerd as he calls himself. Now he has like a Lula V company down in Miami, so he was very dialed in with it also.
Yeah.
So I started a marketing company, and once again, I started with that, and then a friend of mine, Grant Portier, left Southern and started working for a brand and said, how can we integrate it into the Florida market? So right away I said, Polo is a great avenue. Polo, you've got 8 weeks or 12 weeks of Polo.
That's Walter.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
He's been in it forever.
He's been there.
Yeah, he's the man.
Yeah, he's cool. Tommy, you want another one? No, I just got a Spider. I don't want another one. He sold me I think it was a 10. This was like 2012 maybe.
Okay.
And it was a 2010.
Yeah.
And it was so loud. You couldn't even, like me and you couldn't even talk in the car. I had it 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Took it back to him. Lost like $80K on the trade-in.
Oh.
Then I got the 12 Spider, and it was nice and just nice and quiet.
No,
that's
as they got, Murcielago, as they got old, they're now like everyday cars.
Yeah.
Back then, you're taught they were like,
it was a whole,
there's no paddle.
The 12 was, I think, when they changed the exhaust or something.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's interesting.
So then
So I had these clients. So back to the vodka company. Long story short, they wanted to integrate themselves into the community. Polo out here back then would do 6,000 to 8,000 people from all over the place every Sunday, starting first Sunday in January, ending in April. And what happened was Ferrari Maserati had a contract with Polo, so Lamborghini was locked out. Because Moet Hennessy had a contract with Polo, they own Belvedere. So I couldn't get
Really?
a vodka company in. So long story short, we got a big tent, and we would have a model. We would have a case of vodka, and we would do 100 cups. And it was Tito's. And we, and I mean, this is before anything. And then we would park a Lamborghini in front. And we would strategically invite, and we would have more people in our little tent than were in the pavilion. So, we'd have a couple hundred people. And then every week what I would do is I would strategically bring in restaurants that I was working with. So back then I had this little steakhouse. You might know it. It's 5-star. It's really conservative. It's called Rachel's.
Oh, yeah. Damn good steak, though. Damn good steak.
Rachel's was another great client that I had. And, so we started doing marketing. So I would say, okay, I can, through some of these avenues, I can bring all different groups together. So once again, now we had the Lamborghini guys came to Polo, loved it, and said, hey, when we decide to launch the Aventador, why don't we do it up there? So through Eric Trump, who's a friend of mine, we got a number and a name, and we went to Mara Lago, and we launched the Aventador at Mara Lago, and we brought in Helio Castroneves.
That's
and
awesome.
We, it was a 100-person guest list, all VIPs. So we launched the Aventador at Mara Lago. About this time also, my uncle, who was kind of the black sheep of the family, I love him to death, but took his motorcycle out to L.A.
Oh, my God.
And
From here?
Well, he took his motorcycle to L.A. in probably 1980 or 1985.
Mm-hmm.
His best friend was a guy by the name of Wolfman Jack. He used to, with Wolfman, and he used to basically, long story short, Wolfman would get marijuana for Hugh Hefner. And somehow my uncle would be there with Wolfman and Hugh Hefner. Fast forward to about 10 years ago, the Playboy Mansion, he always had an idea for leather meets lace. Basically, women, leather, lace, bikers, because he was a biker. And through his connection with Hugh and this, they started a leather meets lace party. So we started doing a quarterly charity event at the Playboy Mansion.
Oh, shit.
So from here, we would bring, one year we did 30 people. And then the next year they did such a good thing, they decided, hey, you know what? Would you like to do the Halloween party at the Playboy Mansion? And this is maybe 2010, 2011. So it was still cool. It wasn't corporate yet. And I think that time we did 80 people from here to the Playboy Mansion. And the best part was we decided we were all going to go as priests and angels. So literally we went to the commissionary right up the street in PGA, and we're walking in, and I'll never forget it because we're all trying everything on. And one of my friends tries it on, and he looks and he's like, what do you think? And he goes, it looks good. And then the guy that works there walks up and goes, how are you, Father? So it was a real priest.
You thought it was a real priest?
Well, we were dressed as priests, but there was a real priest in there.
Oh, shit.
And my friend asked him how he looked in it. And he was like, so it was one of those moments.
Yeah, kind of one of those, kind of a little uncomfortable for a second or two.
But those are the stories my friend, I mean, to this day, my friend Louis Yallaris, who was my best friend growing up, went there, worked out, was all excited, ended up having 2 girls in the grotto, his lifelong dream. And he said all of a sudden he looks up, Ron Jeremy comes walking over and drops trowel right in front of him.
Yeah. Ron Jeremy, the porn star.
Yeah, Ron Jeremy, the porn star.
Yeah, I don't think you want to bang a girl that he bangs.
Right?
I don't care how good you are.
So that was all during that marketing phase. And then I, like most people, I fell in love. And my wife was probably not too happy with having me go to the Playboy Mansion and represent places like Rachel's and a lot of the other stuff.
Yeah.
So she ended up having me get into an industry which, knock on wood, businesses. I got my real estate license. And then I just started talking to friends. I talked to a couple commercial guys locally. I talked to a couple of residential guys locally. And I was lucky enough through a friend of mine, Steven, who owns the ESPN affiliate here. His fraternity brother was a guy by the name of Andy Cagnetta. And Andy owned Transworld, which was the largest business brokerage based here, franchised out. And great guys, just started talking to him about everything. And he's like, you'd be good at it. From there, I drove up to Orlando to meet this guy, Treve Kinsey, who's kind of been my mentor in this industry, business brokerage. And and so that's when, so I had to kind of say, okay, I'm sorry, Tito's, but I'm still a brand ambassador.
Yeah. So what does
I
that
still get-
actually mean? When you say when it says brand ambassador, what does that mean in like simple terms?
In simple terms, every Christmas,
Yeah.
I get 15 cases for
Okay.
charity events
Oh.
because it's all based on charities.
Yeah.
So I still am very like, and I'll get into it, but not to jump around a lot, but when I got into this, a very good friend of mine who I met down here was a guy by the name of Pierre Garçon, played for the Washington Redskins, and
You know him?
From Riviera Beach, I believe.
yes,
Yeah.
so P's a great, really one of my closest friends, and when I met him 10 years ago at Polo, he was playing for Indianapolis, and that day he's like, you got to come visit me there. I was like, done. So we flew up. It was me and like his best friends. And what I love about Pierre is he keeps it real. Like literally, like we'll be at a table and, even when he was with all the athletes and celebrities, he's always like, you weren't riding your bicycle with me to play football when we were in Pee Wee.
Yeah. Yeah.
And his 3 or 4 best friends, he takes all over the world still. But my story, so basically we got to be good friends. And then he got transferred to the Redskins. So the Redskins was my home team. Like I grew up as a Redskins fan. I'm
How
still
do you
a
feel
Redskins
about that
fan.
they're now? What are they called? The Washington
football team.
What the? That's just ridiculous.
But what was great about that was we ended up being able to create a charity event, which was when you mentioned charity for me. So we created the annual White Party, and we basically were able to every year fund all the after school activities for the Boys and Girls Club, 12 of them in Washington, D.C.
Oh, that's really cool.
So, and we did it, basically, we got smart with it once again, because going back to what my roots, is I said, okay, first of all, if we're going to make money, we got to get everything donated. So obviously, okay, we've got Tito's. My partner on this was a guy by the name of Brian Abramson. Brian Abramson's family owns tower companies, big development group. I was like, Brian, we need a building. He owned a big building downtown, so we got the building. Next thing I said is to make it work, you got to get all the athletes from the Redskins. So we came up with an idea that we were going to do a white party because everyone looks good in white. And I cut a deal with Men's Warehouse that they would give free tuxedos to all the Redskins. So for me, as like a lifelong Redskins fan, I'm like, this is perfect. I'll never forget. First time I go in there and we're fitting, and there's Joe Theismann, there's Doug Williams, there's all these people coming in and getting fitted to come to our party.
Yeah.
And then I was like, all right, the last thing we need to do with this party, we got the food donated, we got the liquor donated. We got to do some kind of cool performance at the end that'll leave people talking. So I think the first year we did it, we didn't have a lot of money, so we did like DJ Cool. Remember, like, let me clear my throat.
Yeah.
And then the next year, we were like, all right, they're going to love this. We did Biz Marquee. So it was the end of the night. Everyone's hammered. And all of a sudden you say, you got what I need.
Yeah.
And like you got 1,000 people on a rooftop singing and partying.
Yeah.
And then the last year we did it, we had Dougie Fresh, the human beatbox up there.
Yeah, Dougie Fresh.
And then Pierre went to San Francisco, and we haven't done a party since. But
Oh, man.
we always knew we had to raise between 150 and 200,000 because that would fund, and it really was nice. I mean, they would get up and talk, but basically, if these kids couldn't go to the Boys and Girls Clubs, they would be in gangs and they would be on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
And we funded basically the whole school year so that they could open up these Boys and Girls Clubs, 12 of them. So
I never realized how bad it was up there.
yeah, it's really bad. I mean, the kids talking, and we went in, and there's a court with our names on it and stuff like that. But that's that whole Boys and Girls Club. And,
Just kind of giving back in a way.
yeah.
Right.
But the charity with it. So long story short, with all the stuff that we do, Tito's has always been great, and they ended up giving me, as I said, in December, I'll give them a list of charities that we work with, and they'll give us cases to distribute. And
Well, they're
they love it.
huge now.
Yeah,
Everybody wants Tito's now. I remember the
It's
first
great
time I
marketing.
said, what the hell is Tito's?
it's great marketing. It's
Yeah.
all. I mean, everything's marketing, but
Yeah.
they're from U.S. made and everything else.
They
and
took
it's-
off.
and it tastes good. At
Yeah.
the end of the day, when you taste it, it's a good vodka.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shit vodkas. It's good vodka.
Yeah, but it just took off like out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, they become like it's not like a vodka and water, it's a Tito's and water. Like they've transformed where you would say a vodka and water to Tito's and water. Tito's has become the name vodka, but that's it. They market themselves that good.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. So that got into my new life. So I got married. I just got divorced, but when I got into the industry, it was great. As I said, I hit the ground running with everything that I do, and I found a niche. And my niche was, if I were to ask everyone in this room right now if they knew someone that was selling condos or apartments in Florida, you could probably name, how many could you name, Sean? People that are real estate agents. Residential. I mean,
Fucking
everyone's a bartender / real estate agent, dancer / real estate agent, promoters, DJ / real estate
everybody's got the real estate license.
Yeah. So I said, okay, and how many commercial guys, that are you with commercial real estate and all that, because that's kind of like a sexier residential. But who do you go to sell your business? And I was like, the biggest company in the whole country is in Fort Lauderdale with an office here. And I was like, two great guys running it for local. And I said, you know what? This is a perfect opportunity. Now I've got, a wife, I've got a kid on the way. And
congratulations.
Thank you, man. That's my boy right there. 5 years old. Spencer Cash Sagman.
There he is.
And
he's the next boss.
I'll tell you, we just went in his classroom today, and there's 9 kids, and he's second in it, and he's only 5. So cutoff in Florida is September 1st. He was born September 1st. So literally, like, the kid across from him is already 6.
Well, my daughter was born September 1st.
Really?
6 months ago, yeah.
Oh, so that's great because you get to choose. Did you know that or no?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that's why we did it too.
Yeah.
You get to choose whether you want to have him young or have her old. So he's old right now, but I mean, he runs around grabbing his pecker and things. He's a little immature,
that's
so
cool,
we might
man.
need to.
See, I love that. I would love that. I'd be like,
so we might need to.
My man.
We knew there was a problem when him and his best friend Louie, when they were a little kid, like they were like 3. So his best friend, which is kind of cool, started at Cambridge with him at 2. They were both born September 1st. So 2, 3, 4s, and 5s. And at 3, they had a girlfriend. But they had sleep. They took naps. So the big joke was whenever they have a nap, Louis would grab his blanket, Spencer would grab his blanket. I think it was Brianna would grab her blanket, and they'd both go in the middle. I was like, dude, they're having threesomes at 3 years old.
More power to you. So now you closed 14 deals.
My first year.
Your first year.
Yeah.
And was it just that you attacked things from a different angle than other people?
Yeah, I mean, I went back to the basics. I mean, if you work hard, just like you probably know in anything, you're going to be successful. So for me, I parlayed a lot of my relationships into selling businesses. And, there was times, so the funniest is right out of the gate, like it's supposed to take 6 months to do your first deal, 9 months. But I was in training, and right when I got out of training, you do something called drop letters. So you run around town and you put drop letters on all the businesses, kind of like what we used to do with flyers. So I did drop letters, and I got a phone call from somebody, and they're like, hey, I was wondering if you could come in and sell my business. It was a little pack and ship. I was like, yeah, of course. I sell lots of pack and ships. He's like, all right, well, when can you be here? And I was like, Friday? And I was like, perfect. So I hang up, and I'm planning to go see him on Friday. And then I somehow got a phone call. I told Treve, the guy I was working with, that, hey, I'm going to list my first listing, a pack and ship. Ding, ding, ding. Somehow we had somebody looking for a pack and ship just through the company.
Yeah.
So the person looking for it, I called, and I'm like, hey, how are you? They're like, I'm good. I'm like, yeah, I heard you're looking for a pack and ship. They're like, yeah. I go, I got the perfect one for you. Now, I hadn't even signed them up yet. I had the meeting 2 days later. I was like, I got you covered. All right, when do you want to see it? They're like, Monday. I was like, Monday? Done. So I hung up, and I'm like, great. I'm going to this meeting. I don't even have them listed, but I have someone coming in Monday that'll potentially buy the business. So I went in, and I was straight. I said, look, we're going to get it done. We do this. I'm very honest. I was like, our company last year did 356 deals.
Yeah, you're not saying
I'm not saying I did. Our company did 356 deals. We're the largest business brokerage in the world. That says something there. Yeah, absolutely. We've done more deals than anybody else. We've got 200 offices. We're in 8 countries. So that's what I was doing, and so I signed them up on Friday.
That was the first deal.
So I got out of school, like they have a 2-week training class, but I got out of school on Monday. I did the drop letters. I signed this group up on Friday. My buyer came on Monday. We had a letter of intent on that Tuesday, and I closed 6 weeks out of training, which is just in this industry, it takes a lot of time. And knock on wood, it's been good. I mean, last month was my best month in 3 years I've been doing this, 4 years I've been doing this.
I keep hearing that. Now, I would think that it would go down. Why is it so up right now?
It's so up because, look, at the end of the day, no offense if you're a big Bill de Blasio fan in New York City. I know Sean's a big fan of all the liberals.
Oh, yeah. He loves them. He loves them.
Yeah, I mean, I see CNN in his house all the time.
Before you go on,
Yeah.
this is the best time to be selling businesses because all the New York businesses are moving where?
Right here.
Texas and here.
Right here.
And Texas.
Texas is getting killed. Texas is doing
a
well,
lot of guys
too.
are going to Texas.
But you know what's great about Florida, and it's so true, is it's 95. We do really well because for the last 50, 60 years, people from New York to Boston to D.C. to Philly can hop right on 95 and come straight down. And that's what all the grandparents did. And that's why it's like 95 here and I think 75 on the other side. So when you go to like Naples and Tampa, it's like a Western, because it's Ohio, Michigan, they hop on the road and same thing.
Yeah, it's like a straight shot in.
Straight shot in. So, and especially with COVID, people weren't flying, but you know what? Hey, let's jump in the car. We'll take 16-hour road trip and we're in Florida at, Ethel's apartment in Delray Beach.
Yeah.
So they all came down. I mean, our businesses that we're selling right now are up, 25 to 35%.
And you think it's just because people are coming down?
I think, once again, I think there's a lot of reasons behind it. But I think one reason behind it, too, is people now have learned, they're trained that they can work from anywhere. My father, a very successful businessman, but he had to wake up every morning and go into his office. Now he can Zoom or he can go online or, you can work from anywhere. You can work from your bed with your two phones and your...
Yeah. See, I think like places like this that are renting offices, I think you would know more than me, but just from my opinion, I think half of them are dead because now with this COVID, people realize, and owners, in my opinion, realize that the person staying at home might be more productive at home than he or she is in the office because they're at home. They can kind of get up when they want, stop when they want. They have a list of stuff to do. Go to a meeting, your refrigerator's right there, your dog can sit on your lap. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but there's also distractions, which is on the other side
right.
of it. Like
so
if I own,
that's what I'm saying. Like
if I own a business, you still want to do FaceTime because I always tell the story of there's different types of, guys, like where I've been successful. I guess the best way to sum it up is, I'm right in that middle. Generation X. So my dad's age group, they didn't know about cell phones and technology. They did deals on the golf course and shook hands.
Yeah.
Sean over there, his millennial age group, they push a button and reach 1,000 people.
Yeah.
There's goods and bads with both of them. The goods about is with being able to push 1,000 people is you're getting in front of a lot of people. But they've also, a lot of ways, lost that personal communication. They lost that. If you're going to do a business deal, you still need to know who you're doing a business deal with.
I want to watch body language.
Absolutely.
When I was making my deal, like when I had the engineering firm, I wanted to watch body language. When I was going to make a deal, if they were going like this, playing with the pen or something, I don't care how good the deal was. If they were going like this when I'd ask them a question, like a serious question, what's your budget? What are you trying to get done exactly? And they pick up that pen and start going like this. Nope, not doing it.
Yeah.
Because to me, that just said that they're nervous. They're not confident in what they're doing. And they're probably not telling me the full truth. So now I'm going to send 5 of my engineers there, and it's just going to be a headache for the next 6 months. You know what I mean?
No, 100%. And that's why I think there's this fine line, as I was saying, between ways to do business and not. And that's where I'm noticing now with a lot of like my son, like he's 5, but he's dying to be in front of the internet or be in front of the computer and do all that stuff. And it's like, you still got to get him out to play ball. He still needs to know how to communicate with people.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like I fell in. I was in college, we'll say during the 90s. And, it was that in between. It was the internet was coming, but there was also that, still that we put on backpacks and go out and hand out flyers and shake hands and say, hey, do you want to come to, the spot on Friday night?
Me and him were talking. We used to throw newspapers.
Yeah.
I was forced to throw newspapers in the morning, go to school, and then when I got back, I had to throw them again.
Yeah.
But that's what taught me, like routine, ethic.
Absolutely.
Tired.
Yeah.
But, I had money.
Yeah.
And then, as I grew in business, I've had a lot of businesses too. And over time, I just realized eyes and body language. That will tell you everything. And if it doesn't feel right, fuck it, walk away.
Yeah. Well, and I'm at a point now where I'll never forget. Like I mentioned, Bob Johnson, my mentor, and or one of my mentors. But we were flying back. He owned the Charlotte Bobcats.
Okay.
So we used to fly up and see the Charlotte Bobcats, and then we'd fly back. And I'll never forget. I'm always that guy. Like my ex-wife used to be like, he's a people pleaser, you know, because I like people and I like to be, you know. And I was looking at Bob. I'm like, oh, we're going back to Florida. We're gonna go to this event. We're gonna do this. We're gonna hang out with this person. And he looks at me and he goes, you know what, Josh? I go, what? He goes, I have enough friends. He goes, I hang out with you because I like you.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need any more friends. And it's just something about that stuck in. And you know, and I always say to myself, you know, you really got to surround yourself with good people. And especially in Florida.
About that.
Whoa,
my
and that's
God.
hard.
That I got smoked.
Yeah.
Three businesses I got smoked.
Mm-hmm.
The body language said everything good, but they are good down here. Boy, they are good manipulators.
Yeah.
And they're patient. And what I've seen I'm not doing the amount that you're doing, but the ones I had.
Like what kind of businesses?
I had I had 3 bars.
Okay.
Then I had an encryption. Remember with the Hillary Clinton thing?
Mm-hmm.
I jumped and opened an encryption place so you could
Okay.
come in, and I had a guy that would like take your phone apart and encrypt the computer. It was put deep freeze on it. You turn it off, it wipes it. I had it while that thing was going. I kept it for 8 months. Did well. And then as I saw that starting to like not be so popular, I sold it. In the bars, I had. I wanted to make it different from everything else. So I had vapors at the, like the vaping,
Mm-hmm.
it was huge
Mm-hmm.
in like 16, 17,
Mm-hmm.
18.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a wholesale warehouse. So I was getting
Smart.
everything wholesale.
Smart.
And then I had 3 bars where you could get alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
come in, buy. And that's when you had to pay to like smoke a cigarette in the bar. You couldn't smoke at all,
Mm-hmm.
but you could vape. So they would come in, sit there and vape, have a drink. The
Mm-hmm.
place next to me was a sushi restaurant. So we made a deal that I would have like big parties and
Yeah.
bands come in and DJs, and then you could get food, vape, and alcohol. Well, then with the wholesale warehouse, what happened was I had heard through the grapevine that they were about to put a tax on it, 20% wholesale tax,
Oh.
which then ups the cost wholesale, and now you got to up the retail price, $2-3, which a lot of people vaping, maybe they don't have an extra $5. Now, if everything I have to up $5, that's going to take a hit. So I could see, and then I saw that Marlboro was looking to buy a bunch of different companies, and they were going to step in.
Mm-hmm.
So when I heard that through the grapevine with the 20, and then it ended up actually being 30% for the wholesalers.
Oh wow.
So if I get
Yeah.
anything. So
So it was
within
a
a
loss
week,
leader with your
within a
profit,
week,
yeah.
I sold all 3 of them. Well, I put them all for sale. I had one in
Now, how'd you sell them?
just through like I had a realtor guy.
Yeah.
Like
so
a commercial
through a
realtor.
commercial
Like somebody,
resident.
yeah. I had one in Largo, Palm Beach Gardens, and then one in North Palm.
Interesting.
I got rid of them. Got rid of the privacy pros. Then I went into the engineering, and then I just got sick of it.
Yeah.
You know when you have a business and it's just not fun anymore,
Mm-hmm.
it's time to go.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
you don't
yeah.
love it, it's done.
Well, and that's why where I'm at now is I sell a lot of businesses. I mean, I'm doing very well, but I kept one restaurant because I always like it, and I kept Meat Market.
Meat market.
So Meat Market Palm Beach, when
You run
literally-
that?
Well, I'll tell you the story. So
Yeah.
basically, it's Meat Market is a restaurant group. So when I had my son, my ex-wife was like, okay, maybe Rachel's. So literally the day I had my son, no more Rachel's, but I picked up Meat Market. And basically what I do is I have a consulting agreement where I come in and we are strategic. So for example, one of the first things I did with them was I said, look, I know if we're making a couple grand and we can eat and drink for free, whatever it is, that we need to quantify our results. So I said, look, we're going to pick one night. It's going to be the biggest night in the town. The only guy I use is this guy by the name of DJ Adam Lipson. We have guest DJs, but he's been with me for 20 years. He's the big DJ. And we're going to do a little dinner party. So every Thursday, when it started, there was, before we started, it was, 20 covers. Now we'll do 175 covers.
Oh, it's huge.
And it's, if you ask people in Palm Beach what the hottest, longest running dinner party is, it's
Meat
Meat
Market.
Market on Thursday nights.
Because a friend of mine's Mark Agressi.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know him? Yeah, he got himself in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah.
So Mark, that's all right. But and he was the first one who said, you got to go to that Meat Market. It's the
Yeah.
biggest thing around here.
Yeah.
And
I'll tell you what's crazy is, so Meat Market opened up in Tampa about a year ago, and it's unbelievable. I mean, I went there for Super Bowl, and there's Mike Tyson, there's Tom Brady's parents.
Really?
They did, not to brag, but I think $500,000 over 2 days or up there. Like
I believe it. They crush
yeah.
it in there.
And our next big thing, which I'm going to get more active with, is we're opening up Boca Raton. So I'm launching it here, but I'm probably going to be moving down to Boca to just for my day job's not going anyplace because I'm really busy with selling businesses, but I always like to have one thing, and the owners of Meat Market are great guys, so we're going to come together and
that will never
help
die.
out Boca. No,
That's like
it's consistent.
It's like one of those things where it's never going to end. It doesn't matter unless Jerk-Off shuts everything
Well, we own
down.
the building up here too, so
Oh,
that's
you
what's
own the
good.
building.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the Meat Market Group owns the building up here, so we're good.
Okay, I didn't
with
know.
everything. Yeah. So it's and for me, as I said, I'm not Sean Rebs. How old are you now? 25.
I just turned 32.
Nice, buddy. Nice.
Hey, we're the only two guys that were both the marketing director of Rachel's at different times.
Yeah.
I was more when it was digital. He was more when it was real marketing. But
yeah, we were doing.
I have to admit, they got the best steak. Better than Flagler Steakhouse.
not better than Meat Market, right?
No, it's. We did the biggest part. In fact, this is kind of cool. We did
Watch
the
that camera,
largest
Sean.
party.
Do not hit your head on that camera.
We did the largest party. It's a whole new, but we did the largest party Rachel's ever did. It was called the Red Party. It was like their very first one. This has to be going back 6 years, but it was in the 100,000s that we did.
That's
we did ridiculous.
Spuito?
Who owns Rachel's?
Yeah.
Or
No, that's Monroe's. Monroe's
Yeah.
is Stoopy.
Yeah, Staluppi owns.
Stalluppi.
Yeah, Staluppi
Yeah,
owns. It's an ownership group with Rachel's. It's Keith Johnson's one of the owners.
Are they connected to each other?
No.
Separate entities.
Separate,
right?
totally
Yeah.
separate entities.
Also.
So yeah. So that's a brief synopsis. So right now, like as I said, I wake up every morning at 5 a.m. and I'm prepping for my day.
What time do you go to bed?
I need a good 4 hours of sleep, and I'm good.
Yeah.
So if I'm asleep by 1 and I'm up by 5, I'm good. Now I'm like, as I said, I'm domesticated. I belong to a country club, Wanderers out in Wellington.
Yeah.
So I play tennis 3 days a week. As I said, I just recently got divorced, so we have a great relationship, me and my wife. Like my ex-wife, I have my son Mondays and Tuesdays. She has him Wednesdays and Thursdays, and then it's every other weekend.
That's
So
cool.
yeah, so like I don't have him tonight, I don't have him tomorrow, but I'll pick him up on Friday. I'll have him Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, drop him off on school Wednesday. And then Thursday, I'm flying to a little place called Medellin, Colombia.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I don't get him again until Monday. So I'll
Right,
go to
so you got
Colombia
time.
I'll go.
What are you doing over there?
My best friend, the same guy I told you with the Ron Jeremy story,
Yeah.
moved with his wife and his child to Medellin. She's from there.
Do they like it over there?
They love it.
I have a friend over there. He
Yeah.
loves it.
Well, he's from Maryland, and he's very conservative, and Maryland's very liberal. So he just had enough of the government, and he owned a bunch of businesses, restaurants, and things like that. So he's like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Packed his family up and moved to Colombia.
I have a guy that works for me. He's
Yeah.
in the Philippines.
Yeah,
25K.
yeah.
He has a 3,500 square foot house.
Wow.
Really nice. 3-car garage.
Mhm.
I don't know how much land he's got. An acre maybe in the Philippines in a nice area.
Mhm.
And I mean, the house is beautiful and built. Lot,
Mm-hmm.
everything all together is like $27.5
Wow.
US dollars.
Yeah,
Fuck, that'd be $4 million here, $5 million here
yeah,
on the island, right?
yeah. That's interesting. I mean, it's wherever you go, but then once
Columbia's
again,
like
you gotta.
that too, though, right?
Yeah, but I think once again, you pay for what you get. He's in probably the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
He's got to drive an hour to go get a.
Yeah, go get
to
a cheese.
Yeah,
Well, I don't
so
even think
there's
they
a
eat
little
cheese
bit
there.
more, whatever
Yeah.
it is. But it's. I mean, look, I just.
Security there.
Well, when I met him, he was in a village, like actually a village.
Wow.
And he would go to the library, and he's really good on the computer.
Mhm.
And I do internet marketing. I only have 10 contracts. I don't want any
Smart.
more. Just 10.
Mhm.
They're annual,
Mhm.
signed. So
So what do you do? SEO, SEM,
SEO, yeah.
website building,
website
yeah.
building,
Mhm.
all that stuff promoted.
Mhm.
But like I have a minimum that I'll take,
Mhm.
and it's got to be a year,
Mhm.
or I'm not even talking to you because
Mhm.
I had done it prior. And if you do it month by month with the wrong person, well, why am I not on page one? Blah, blah, blah. No.
Yeah.
1 year. Here's the minimum.
Mhm.
You don't like it. Here's my portfolio. You don't like it. See ya.
Smart. You got to.
And I have 10 because that way I'm not overwhelmed. But
Mhm.
I sub it to Philippines, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and then I get it back, and then I clean it up and make it right.
No, that's it, because as you said, you have to, but that's smart. That's how a lot of the companies do it. 'Cause
Yeah.
you sub it out because
They all do it.
yeah, because you
Yeah.
can pay a certain amount of money. But the ones that are smarter like you still have to clean it up.
Yeah.
Because it's like when you call the place, you're like, "Hello, how are you? This is
Yeah.
Amazon." You're like, "Okay, you're calling from
Yeah.
right." Like,
Well, years ago, I was paying $20,000 a month for SEO, and the guy was in Chicago. So I fly out to Chicago and I meet him, and I go, I never saw him in person. I go, this guy I'm paying $20,000 a month for SEO. This schmuck here. So I come back and I go, I got to figure this out. So I stayed up for 3 days. I slept
Yeah.
maybe 2 hours trying to figure out how to do it, and I figured out how to do it. And as I was learning, I saw him put my website on a place called Upwork now. But before it was called Freelancer, where you can hire these guys in other countries and they have ratings. And right there's my website. And it says, I need 50 pictures made for this website, blah, 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 blah. And they're bidding. And the bid was like $225.
And he's making 10.
wow, and you were like, "Holy shit!" And I'm paying $20,000.
Yeah, and then I see 3 more
Yeah.
job offers for the 3 items that I had added to the site to be updated, to be optimized. $100. So for maybe he spent $500, maybe to a couple of hours, maybe it cost him $1,000 overall, and I'm giving him $20K reoccurring. And when I saw that, I said, "That's it, freelancer. Here we go."
Yeah.
And then
No,
that was
it's-
the end of paying that $20 a month.
Well, and it's smart that you keep it limited to 10 because a lot of the successful, like when you're ready to sell, we'll talk. But the
Yeah.
ones that I'm dealing with, it's like because you have your clients, they've been with you for a certain period of time, they know how that you operate. You're not having that guy that's driving you nuts for,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
don't-
like, yeah.
No.
Yeah. And then what do you charge? What do you start at? What are your ranges?
So my range, if I like the business, I'll do 5 a month. But usually my minimum's 10, or I won't even do it. So I have 10 contracts, and they're all between 5 and 10 a month. Anything less, I know you're not serious, and it's just too much of a headache. But however, even with the 10, because I don't want to be overwhelmed, so I can put my time in for the client. If I got 20 of them, I can't do it. And I like doing this. This is like my therapy here.
Yeah,
You know what
I
I mean?
like it, dude. This is great.
Thank you. But then again, if somebody had come in and maybe they only have, $1,000 a month, but I liked what they were doing, I liked the business, and I thought it had potential, I would say, okay, look, I'll do $1,000 a month for a year. However, we're going to look at the numbers. If you're making, let's say, $25,000 a month, okay, it's $1,000 a month. When I get you to $40,000 a month, now we're going to go to $2,500.
Smart.
When I get you to 70, now we're going to do 5. So I scaled it in the contract with a lawyer, of course.
Now, how do you keep track of the numbers? Like, how are you sure? How do you know when they get to why?
Because I have access to everything.
So you have access, even as they're digital marketing, you have access to, well, obviously some of it's e-commerce and other things that you can keep track on.
I mean, I'm sure they're dogging me some. I mean, it's business, but I can see every transaction that's credit card. I mean, cash they could probably swing by as to how much they're making. But I mean, the ones I have now, I don't have that. But I'm just giving an example that if somebody did come in that only had $500 a month, but I liked it and believed in it, I would do it, and then I would scale it, and have a lawyer and have it all written out.
Yeah.
At this point, all 10 of mine are between 5 and 10, and that's it. But what I'm saying is, if I believed in something, I would take it for less.
No,
And then try to grow.
Well, that's smart.
And then try to buy it from
That's a
them.
great, yeah. Well, that's the thing with me right now that I struggle with every day is you see those businesses.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do I buy this business? But I just, we take 12%, and once again, we're the mediator. I mean, we do a lot. Like,
It's not bad. 12% isn't bad.
well, I mean, that's, but we get paid on the end. So
Yeah.
there's deals that, I'm scheduled to make $100,000 on, and at the very last day of due diligence, they pull out,
yeah.
and you're like,
But
you
usually
know?
it's usually 2 or
2 with what?
Why I always say 2 points. It's usually like 20%.
20%.
Like what you're doing, you're saying 12%. I've always seen 18, 20%.
For businesses.
Yeah.
Well, as a broker, we're the middleman. So, like, let's say you want to sell your business and I represent you. Well, then I'll bring in a buyer. but they might have an agent. So we would split it so it'd be 6%.
I see what you're saying.
It's still better than 3% or 6% for real. And then M&A deals, so when I do the big deals, they start at around, we do what's called the Lehman. So it'll start at 10.
What's the Lehman?
Lehman means like the first million. So if I was going to sell a $10 million business, the first million would be at 10%. The second million would be at 8%.
I see.
The third would be 6 to 4%. So then it would level out at 4% because you can do the math. 4% at $10 million isn't a bad little payday.
No, not on one deal.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Right. So if you're getting 4% on 10 million, I think most people would say, I'll take it.
Now, out of all the things you do, so like you're doing the real estate, you're basically, telling business, using strategy with the businesses that you work with, but then you're doing mergers too.
Mergers and acquisitions are the big ones.
That sounds like hell.
See, I'm smart. Like, look, some people would come in and say, I'm going to do it myself. I'm lucky enough with like a Transworld, our company, because we have an M&A division. So I've got a whole team of people because I know what my strength is. There's in our business, there's different, there's the opener, there's the middleman and there's the closer. I'm very good at the opening and I'm very good at the closing. But the middle, I have 2 assistants.
Yeah.
One of my assistants does all my non-disclosure agreements, and follows up with my clients. My other assistant does all my CIMs and all my marketing agreements. And those are basically, if you're going to buy a business, we have to have a comprehensive manual that tells you about the business. But I'm the one that's on the phone with the clients and, and I'm saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. People don't realize when you buy and sell a business, there's so much that goes into it. It starts with finding the business. Once you find it, then you've got to have a meeting of the minds between buyer and seller. Once you have a meeting of the minds behind them, you've got to, is it going to be SBA financed? So do they have cash or are they going to the bank for the cash? Okay. Then there's due diligence. So if you're telling me you're making, $750,000 in the business, we need to make sure you're making $750,000 in the business. And then once that goes, so you get a 2-week due diligence period when everyone's going back and forth. They sign off on due diligence. A quarter of our deals will go fault because of the landlord.
Yeah.
With smaller deals, you need to cut a deal for a 10,000 square foot warehouse. And okay, the landlord's, you're paying $20 a square foot. The landlord doesn't want to, the landlord knows the seller's going to pay him every week.
Plus cam.
Yep. Plus everything. So they're going to come in and they're going to end up, saying, okay, now you're going to pay $40 a square foot. And the buyer's like, I'm not going to pay that. And then boom, the deal's done. So it's tough. That's why when I do like 14, like it's hard to get to the finish line.
You open, you close, and you keep everybody calm. And then you have the
team.
great people around you. Your team.
You have to have the accountants.
I would think, because my friend did a merger, and I saw the paperwork, and I said, I'm nauseated just looking at the paperwork. Like, and he had a killer team. Like guys like
you have an accountant and you have an attorney.
Yeah.
Those are your two best.
And they actually read through all that.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I read through them, but half the time but you got to at least know the term.
They know it.
Yeah, they have to.
Yeah.
Well, we're not attorneys, and that's the whole thing too. Like, we can't do closings. Plus, what I do is asset sales. I'm not a stockbroker, so I can't do a sale of a stock. So if somebody's selling a corporation, what happens is 9 out of 10 times you're either an S corp or an LLC with your business. So you sell your business, and when you sell it, the new buyer is going to have their own LLC. So they're buying the assets of the business. Reason being, God forbid something happened and, you buy this business, you don't want to be accounted to the corporation prior.
Right.
So what we do is we do asset sales, selling of the corporation. So it's more like assets, the chairs, the goodwill, the electronics, all that stuff.
Yeah.
The customer database. So
now, pull that picture up. How do you know when to sell your business? I saw that on your.
One of the most important things with knowing when to sell your business is staying ahead of the curve. I do a lot of exit strategy talk, and when I say exit strategy, it's staying ahead of the curve. For example, I sold a pretty big gas station. Okay. And the problem I ran into was it's called, and you'll like this. You guys are Philly guys. Have you ever heard of Wawa?
Oh. Yeah, Wawa.
The best.
All right, so
Wawa sandwiches down here.
Well, Wawa just started coming into South Florida. Yeah. So Wawa took the state of Florida and they mapped out where they wanted to put Wawas, and they started opening Wawas. Well, gas stations are sold by gallons of gas. So I had a Prime Chevron. It had a Subway. It had a Popeyes. But it was a quarter of a mile from the Wawa. So Wawa opens. They go from doing 140,000 gallons of gas a month to 60,000 gallons a month. And basically, so we're talking about a business that would have at its heyday probably been a 2.25 to 2.5 million that we sold for, I think, 800,000. Didn't even get $1 million
They just got rocked.
because Wawa came in
Yeah.
and Wawa was right there. So when you talk about exit strategies, those are the things that you always have to be aware of. Big companies, in Florida, we do a lot of, the companies that people, pools cleaning companies, landscaping companies, things, but yeah, that's basically the steps, as we said. First thing is you evaluate.
So you evaluate the business.
Yes.
Then you get your financials together.
Yes.
Do you mean like capital?
No, financials are the financials from the business. So, for example, a lot of people, there's a difference between P&Ls and tax returns. So the P&Ls might, P&Ls show your story.
Profit and loss.
Profit and loss. Your tax returns show one thing. So, for example, most businesses are writing their car insurance off through it. They're writing health insurance. They're writing all these different things off through their business. Well, if you buy the business, you may or may not want to write your car through it. You may or may not. So those are what are called owner benefits. So the financials, when we're preparing them, is figuring out what that bottom line number is, the EBITDA of the business. So what are you, if you own this, we call it seller's discretionary earnings.
And what's EBITDA mean?
It's basically the amount of money when it's all said and done. How much money is your business making? So if it's making $100,000, that is what that number is. And then it's a multiple. So you value the business, you prepare the financials, you find a business broker, which for me, I'm kind of like you. I sit across from them and I'm like, look, I have enough business.
Yeah.
If I like the business and I think we're going to sell the business, I tailor expectations right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Because you'll sit down and they'll be like, oh, my business is worth $1 million.
You kind like, I mean, you're doing different deals, but I was
Yeah.
doing with the engineering. It's similar
Mhm.
type of thing. In 2 minutes, I knew.
Yeah.
Now, I might sit there for a half an hour just to let them get out what they want to say, but I'm thinking about what I'm
Yeah.
going to do next.
Well, my thing is I'll take a business if they're reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say reasonable, our contracts are a year. So I know if I put it on the high end for the first quarter, that they're going to, after a quarter, I have analytics now. So just like what you do, I can say, look, we got 1,000 views, but only 3 people clicked on it. Because you can buy a set of hair salons right down the street for half the price. So I tailor expectations right away when it's find the business broker. I'm like, look, I tell them, go talk to other business brokers. There's 3 things you ask. 1, what company are they with? Transworld, I win all the time. I go, second, are they part of what's called the BBF? In Florida, there's something called the BBF, which is Business Brokers of Florida. And it's kind of like the MLS. You know how, like, if you buy a house, the agent goes on and look?
Yeah.
So all the big companies down here in Florida are part of this company. And when you get a listing, you put it on there and then you have to co-broke it up to a certain amount, yada, yada, yada. But it's great because, like, you could want a business and I can log on and I can find 1,200 businesses
That's
that
awesome.
everybody else can't.
That's
Anyone
awesome.
can go on Biz Buy Sell or these other things, but there's only probably a couple hundred of us that can go on and we're all kind of work together.
That's all. So it's like kind of like a brotherhood in a way.
It is with the business with I mean, when I say real business brokers, people making
We're
money.
talking guys
Yes.
that are on that. I always say on that level.
Yes.
That's what I say. On that level where nobody's stabbing everybody because everybody's making money.
Well, and we're all making money and we work together.
Yeah.
Because for all you know, I'm going to have one that I'm selling and you're going to have a buyer and you're going to have one and I have a buyer.
Yeah.
So if we make 4, so that's how it kind of works.
You
but
work kind of as a team.
So that's, find your broker. So then once we sign up, the executive summary, as I said, I have an assistant who just works on those. And that's basically, you inquire on a business, you sign a non-disclosure agreement and a personal financial statement. I need to make sure that you have the money to buy the business. You're not in like mom's basement with 10 cents to rub together. So non-disclosure so you don't tell people. The biggest thing difference between us and residential is, right now I think I'm at, 35 listings. And out of those 35, 33 of them I won't mention because it's confidential. And because as a business owner, you don't want people knowing that you're selling your business. So that's why that part is so key.
Oh, I see.
The non-disclosure and the personal financial statement. Non-disclosure because they can't tell people. Personal financial statement because we know the person can buy it. And most importantly, I get them on the phone. And if it's a client, like if it's, I sold a big truck. If it's a trucking company and it's another trucking company, I need to make sure that the trucking company isn't a competitor.
Yeah.
That could take clients because, Bob's trucking company is selling.
I get it. So it's like say Saks Fifth Avenue was going to sell.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want anybody to know that they're selling because then they're going to be looked down on
Yeah.
by the people that are going to go in. So if they just do a little sneaky sell, just a quick thing nobody even knows.
I mean, the best way to put it with what I do is Main Street brokerage. You know, when I say Main Street, 250,000, like 2 million.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of our sweet spot. I've done the big ones, you know, and then the little ones because we take minimums. You'll take a minimum of 25,000. So we might sell a business for 100,000 and take 25. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then it goes to the executive summary, and that's where once they've signed the NDA, they've signed the personal financial statement, the buyer, they get the non-disclosure, they get the package of information, and then it's, you know, we take them to market. So we basically.
You guys do.
We do. We put them on, you know, 10 different websites. We've got a whole, like me personally, I have a big list of buyers now. So when I know it's a good business, I'll hit up my buyers right away. I'll say, hey, you know, we're going live on Monday. You know, we got to put them up with, do you want interest? And then boom, because we see them first. And then we list it. And as I said, you know, people know the biz buy sells and they a bunch of, and then the negotiations, they come in and we're the ones that handle it. We're transactional brokers.
And that's where you come in to close the deal.
Well, yeah, well, this is still too early. Negotiations is more like if you were going to buy, you know, if you were going to buy a restaurant group. So for example, Benny's on the beach. Have you been to Benny's right here?
Yeah, I know him.
Okay, so Lee Lipton's a very good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Lee Lipton was looking
Red
to
Ferrari,
expand.
right?
Yeah. So Lee was looking to expand over the summer with COVID and everything else. And a colleague of mine was selling Mulligans. So the whole big Mulligans group. And I knew that Mulligans was under contract, but it was SBA approved for like 12 million or whatever. But SBA was frozen. So I went to Lee and I said, Lee, let's cut a deal and let's make him a cash offer. I obviously, I'm not going to say how much, but it was so Lee's like, let's do it. So we took Lee and we went to the Mulligans and we said, we want to buy Mulligans, and that's Viva La Playa.
Really?
So that's how Lee bought Viva La Playa. Now he's brilliant because now he's got Benny's on the beach.
I didn't know he had that.
And he's got Viva La Playa, and Chef Jeremy, a good friend of mine, is involved with him also. And
he came to me to build over there.
Yeah.
He wanted, you know, like when you walk up the steps,
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, you have the inside, then you have the outside.
Yeah.
He wanted that whole thing redone.
Wow. Yeah.
I ended up not doing it,
But so that's the negotiations, is like coming in, and then that's the closing of the deal. And as I said, there's so many different elements, as I said earlier, to get from opening to closing with these things that.
And what's the average timetable and all that?
You know,
I mean, if you have a buyer, I
yeah,
guess.
I mean, look, I tell everybody it's 8 to 10 months. If you're going to sell your business, plan on 8 to 10 months. Reason being, your first quarter, we're going to do everything we can. By second quarter, they're going to start coming back. We'll get the negotiations going, and then in 8 to 10 months, it'll sell. As I said, I've done them I've done them in 2 days, but I've also done them in 3 years. You know, so it takes time. You know, because you got to find the right buyer for the right seller, and you've got to find the right situation for everybody.
And all the paperwork.
Paperwork isn't the hard. The hard part is, you know, if somebody comes in and they want to buy a business, you know, and if someone wants to sell a business, you know. So
Now, this is what I wanted to ask you about. Because I've had like some other real estate guys, and you know, they don't know what they're talking about. So if I have a long-term lease with my landlord, am I going to be able to transfer that?
It's all verbiage.
Do you run into that a lot?
Yeah, all the time, and it's all verbiage in your lease. So it basically will say without reasonably withheld. So whenever, that's kind of our key as a broker. When we read a lease, if I go through the lease and as long as it says without reasonably withheld, then we've got a chance. A lot of these big companies, though, put verbiage in there where it's really hard for transferring of the lease. So that question that's what they put. I mean, it put it right up there. You know, it's crucial to the success. As I told you, a lot of deals fall apart because when they get to the lease part of it, it doesn't work.
I just know people watching this. I know they run into this all the time.
See the clause right there. Leases will have a clause that defines the landlord's rights regarding the transfer. So it all depends what you sign. So my recommendation is when you sign your lease, always have when you talk about exit strategies, I always tell people, make sure you have an attorney. Like I'll say it 100 times. I'm not an attorney. I'm not an accountant. I always recommend an attorney. I always recommend an accountant. Now, attorneys are an issue because when I go to closing, when I close a deal, the buyer of the business knows how much they're buying the business for. Let's say it's $1 million. The buyer knows they're buying the business for $1 million. The seller knows they're selling the business for $1 million. I know I'm making $120,000. An attorney comes in and they're billing $500 an hour.
Yeah.
So what is their reason to get this deal closed?
Attorneys.
right?
Help
There's
me.
no reason to get the deal
Help me,
closed.
Josh, with attorneys. The
So-
amount of money I've spent on attorneys, you cringe. And, you
So,
know, like,
yeah.
they sign a paper and, oh, that's an hour.
Yeah.
I had Mark
I mean,
Garagos.
Oh, well. You
10,000
got in a little
for
trouble
phone call.
probably. So, yeah.
So now this is the Transworld website.
Yeah, this
right?
is this is basically our site. I mean, it's great because you can basically log on and look at, you know, those are a lot of those are my deals that I personally, you know, some
Oh,
of
these
them.
are your deals?
Those are like a lot of, yes, those 8. I mean, I have more, but those 8 are in my portfolio.
What's that? What'd you buy there? What's that? What's the
So-
sandwich one?
That's
The
I
deli?
can't. Yeah, it's all they're all confidential. If you want to
Oh,
sign
okay, I'm
if you want to sign an NDA right here, no, but
I've
but
signed-
so
I've
those are.
signed
But once
plenty.
again, you know, those are all. I mean, out of those 8 right there, they're all pretty good businesses.
Go back up, Rob, so it's top and blow it up a little bit. So now,
Yeah.
do you just do Florida or it's? Well, no, because you guys are you have
Yes.
8.
So
8 spots.
I've done deals in New York. I've done deals in DC. But you know, I love to work with people. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a. There's a lot of people in my industry that do it all themselves, and I'd say, you know what? I'd rather split a $200,000 commission and do half the work or a third of the work, than to be hustling and not being able to service my clients and do everything. So
Yeah.
I have a big team I work with. I've got a guy down here named Tom Milana, who's my partner. He does the international sales. So we do a lot of deals together. Up in New York, it's kind of funny. A fraternity brother of mine I brought into Transworld. So now he's working with the New York office. His name's Chris Griffin. So I've got a New York friend up there doing New York deals.
Isn't he getting killed up
And
there
then-
right now?
Yeah, I mean, but once again, if you want to buy a business for pennies on the dollar, you
Now's
know,
yeah.
now, but some of the businesses are doing well. You know, I can't say the name, but we have a hardware store with real estate up there.
Really?
And they've been killing it because of masks and everything else in the real estate and their supply company. But, you know, it's several $1 million we're asking for it. But we've got a nice little New York listing right now.
They're
that
in
we're selling.
California, are just killing.
Well, you know, Sean's good friend de Blasio
Yeah.
up there and Mayor and Cuomo.
Yeah, maybe you could give him a call and
Yeah,
tell
do
him
you
to
think you
calm
could-
down.
Yeah, I need to give him another call. Man.
Yeah, give him a call and say, I can't breathe out of one mask. I really don't want to wear 2.
And the worst is now the election's over and they're opening up, right? Like 25%
Yeah, yeah. Isn't
in the
that
schools.
funny?
And
Yeah.
miraculously now they're capable of opening.
Yeah,
I mean,
Numbers are worse than they were when they closed.
I
Forgot that.
no comment. But yeah, so this is, as I said, what we're good with is we are the largest. I mean, last year I think we did 386 deals in the state. And I think maybe the next
You
closest
did
was
386 deals in
Transworld
Florida?
State of Florida. Well, in Florida, we've got 8 offices. You know, I think we've got 70-something agents. But yeah, we did. So that's sold. One of the largest custom cake dessert companies. A lot of these we got to update have sold.
Did you sell the wine and bistro?
Yes, the wine and bistro that
How's
we've
that
sold
doing?
that.
Doing pretty good?
It's doing good. It's an owner operator one, but
Okay.
I've sold. I mean, as I said, we sell a lot of these. They got to be updated. But actually, that one isn't sold. That one I have, but I sold a wine bar last month, a nice little one down off of Lantana.
I had a barber shop on North Lake.
Yeah, that one's going
I
under
had it
contract
6 months. I couldn't stand it.
tomorrow. But he's been 20-year-old. It's in a shopping center. I mean, that once again, that would be one of those pre-COVID probably worth 130, 140,000, and now they're selling it for 65.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, so now if you got it in the bank, buy it now, sit on it, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you would do?
Yeah, I
Or
mean,
maybe
look,
try
everything's
that.
gonna come back. Those are tough, the barbershops and service industries, because a lot of people are going into those smaller end places. But as you can see, these are some of the bigger deals that we're working on. You know,
Yeah, no, you're not. Now
car
you're getting
wash
into the
and-
big boy
Yeah,
leagues.
like, you know, with the car washes and the
Wait, a
Grand
commercial
Save.
cabinet contractor, 6.7 million?
Yeah, they do well. They do a lot of EBITDA and they're
Wow.
they're pool construct. I mean, as I said, we've got everything up to. This is our mainstream. I mean, this is, you know, these are, you know, people that want to come down here. You know, a lot of times too, we do a lot of E2 visas. I don't know if you've heard of the visa. So there's a big visa market. Basically, let's say you're in Europe and you want to come over here.
Yeah.
Well, you can buy a small business for an E2 visa, which is basically saying you have a couple of employees, you're paying a little bit of money for them. Then they get bigger and, you know, an EB5 and an L1 and, you know, and you can basically buy your green card. in not so many words. But
Because you have a business over
because
there,
you have
right?
a business over here and you're employing U.S. citizens.
Gotcha.
So before all COVID and everything, you know, I did a lot of deals
bet
with
you
Europe
killed
and
it,
Canada
yeah.
and different European countries because they want to come over here.
Yeah.
So it was, and they'll pay a lot of times top dollar for businesses because they, you know, there's that second entity. Why they're coming over here is they want their green card. So give me a business I like, I'll pay X dollars for it.
And they've probably, if it's not somebody dirty, they probably saved for 300 years in the family. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to be able to get over
to
here.
come over here.
you know?
Yep, true. So
Yeah, it's just cool to see. I always look at Apple repair and resale. That's not bad. 160.
Yeah, one of the things we do too, which
Yeah, I
is
had a
great,
repair
and
shop,
I should
so.
give a shout out to. So we're a franchise. So Andy Cagnetta, who brought me in, teamed up with a guy by the name of Ray Titus.
Mm-hmm.
Ray Titus owns United Franchise Group, and what's amazing, and a lot of people don't know this, but in Palm Beach County, it's one of the largest franchise companies in the whole world. They own Sinorama. They own local John Smith subs, Experamax. They own Transworld. We started a communal, the big office space called Venture X, and they're all franchises. So they're one of the largest, and you know they've got a 30,000 square foot facility. So what I've been able to do a lot, and I did 3 last month of these. Our buyers come to me and they're like, look, you know, I just lost my job, you know, or I'm looking for a business that you can walk right into, and I don't really know how I'm going to handle it, and I hand them off, and they're amazing. I mean, their team at United Franchise Group really takes you from A to Z. So they'll say, okay, you want to buy a Sinorama? Well, you're going to come to 2 weeks of training. We're going to give you the manual. We're going to give you everything that you need to know about it.
See, that's so cool.
And
I think that's so cool.
It's awesome, and they're right here. So for me in Palm Beach County, I can take buyers, and on top of that, what they do with a lot of my sellers is, okay, you buy a business, you've got Mac Daddy subs. I'm using an example.
Yeah.
Mac Daddy subs, and you want to franchise it. Well, we've got a franchise department. So now we'll take Mac Daddy subs and we'll say, this is what we did when we did Sinorama. This is what we did when we did Transworld. When we did all these companies, create them into franchises, and now you can sell them. So you can go in and you can take whatever your idea is, and we'll give you the franchise docs. We'll give you all the blueprint to be able to sell the business. So
That's awesome. So you'll guide somebody. The company will guide somebody into
absolutely
whatever they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
That is awesome.
So yeah, so that's as I said. So this is my day job for now. As I said, I'm recently in another sphere. I'm still gonna do. The business brokerage. It's fun.
This seems you.
It's
seems
good.
you.
What I think the next step I might do is I might start, figuring out a way that we can invest in some of these businesses, figure out a way. I mean, I've got stories of, we've sold some of the biggest, beauty supply companies where the guys come in and, it's a X amount and they digitize it because, the owners haven't been the owners have done it for 50 years, but they don't get it. When I say they don't get it, they don't have any internet presence. So these guys can come and all of a sudden say, okay, OPI is a nail and I get it at $8 and we can put it online and sell it for $15.
Yeah.
And it goes from a $300,000 to a $2.5 million business in 1 year.
Like that.
And I saw it and I knew it and I everything else. And without saying the name of it, I knew it. They have they had all the infrastructure except for the millennial mindset.
Right.
And those are the businesses that you say.
I've had a lot of I open them, close them, open them when as soon as I see it go down, or I have that feeling, boom, done. You can look me up. I got 30 LLCs.
Yeah.
But I keep it, make the money, and then dump
Smart.
it. But I always try to, before I do it, I personally always try to think it through. How am I going to be different from anybody else? So if I sell microphones, how am I going to sell this better than BH Audio? What is going to separate me from somebody else where you're going to even take a look at me? You know what I mean?
Well, my thing would be with you, or what I recommend to everybody is I'm like, look, put it on the market within a year or two because it's all confidential. And if you don't mind, flip it for a profit, especially now. And this is the one thing I'll end with, when we're done with, is this is the time if you have a business in South Florida to sell. And I'm not just saying it because, as I said, I could care less. I say all the time and I get in trouble, but I'm like, look, it's not going to affect my lifestyle, whether I sell your business or I don't sell your business. But there's so many people right now that want to change. And I have too many buyers and not enough inventory. And we have a lot, I have a lot of inventory, but if you're thinking and you've said, all right, for 10 years, you're bored or whatever it is that you would want to sell. And with what you're saying, if you open up a business, you open up with a company and you've got projections where we can say, look, over the course of 3, 4, 5 years, you're going to do this much, put it on the market because we can sell it off of pro forma.
Yeah.
We can sell it off of, this is the direction we're going. We've got residual. With COVID, we stayed at this. But that would be my one bit of recommendation for people that are own businesses and listen to us and are saying, is it or at least talk to somebody, call myself or talk to any business broker. But now is the time in here, just like residential real estate people. Like they're all like, oh, we don't have any houses. We don't have apartments. There's a big influx of people right now that want to be in Florida.
Yeah, that's what I keep here. Pull up his Facebook because I wanted to ask you about.
No,
it's all good.
As long as it's not my wife's Facebook.
No. I'm
not
going to get
lovely
you killed.
posts. No,
Listen,
it's all
I'm not
my
gonna get
ex-wife's Facebook.
Go to more and then images. Photos, I mean.
Yeah, those are.
So that's the law firm you guys use?
Yes, Carmen Law Firm's great. Deborah Carmen. What I like is their closing attorney. So you'll have, if you're a buyer, you'll have an attorney. If you're a seller, you'll have an attorney, but you still need somebody to do your closing statements and your closing documents. So you need somebody to do your bill of sale. You need somebody to do all of the documents and all of the paperwork, do all the legal search. So I use Carmen for most of my closings down here.
And is that what you're going to tonight?
Meat markets tomorrow night.
Fucking today's Wednesday.
Yeah, tomorrow night's our big party. Thursday nights, I mean, it's great. And tonight I'm going to Biblique, from New York. It opened last week.
Hey,
and
why they close the Rainbow Room in New York? I used to go there all the time.
Yeah, Jenny Oz, Warner Leroy.
Yeah, I know.
His daughter's a very good friend of mine, Jenny.
Yeah.
But Rainbow Room, I don't know, but that was a great spot.
I
You know how those restaurants are.
Yeah, I know. But I was surprised. And then go to his LinkedIn. What time's your thing today?
Yeah, 8:30 is our reservation. So,
sure. I'll get you out of here. Yeah. I'll put all these links in.
No, I appreciate it, man. Definitely.
And, I mean, not just because of the money. Who cares about the money? Money comes and goes, but just the knowledge that you have. Now, last question. I'll let you get out of here so you're not late. So now when you have new trainees come in or you have new agents, employees, you mentor them, right?
Yeah.
You give
I
them
was lucky enough to Glenn, who does the corporate training for Transworld, wanted to bring me in because I was brand new, and as I said, I did 14, whatever it was, So, and the hardest time in this industry is a lot of people don't make money for their first year to 2 years because you're learning the industry. So I would come in and I would teach, and I would basically speak, and I speak at the IBBA, which is the largest organization. I've won a lot of awards and things like that, but it's speaking about being able to, maximize your earning potential and learning how to do business. And this is a business that you have to, from the get-go, you have to hit the ground running, because if you don't, you're not going to be successful. And all businesses are like that, but especially in business brokerage, because it's a process. It's, from getting the listing to selling the listing to working with the buyer to SBA to landlord to everything that we discussed. So more or less to answer your question, I started mentoring. So once a month I would go in and I would speak to the new agents, and these are new people, either agents or people that buy offices. Because remember, Andy, owns the state of Florida. So Andy Cagnetto with Transworld, when he franchised it, he said, I'm keeping Florida, and then everywhere else you can buy Atlanta, you can buy Syracuse, New York, you can buy different areas. So if somebody buys Austin, Texas, they would come to training for 2 weeks to learn about the business, and they would have me come in and kind of do my little hook and ladder and tell them how I was successful or fast track to success.
I mean, you got to be proud of yourself to be the one to do that, to do that, and then if somebody actually listens, see the progression. And they still have to put the work in, but you give them the tools.
Well, and I've only been doing this about 3 years.
That's ridiculous.
So, at the end of the day, between us, I've only been doing this for 3 years. So, yes.
Okay, remember I said...
I don't want to say that because the people are going to be like, I don't want someone selling my business. But yes, I've only been doing it for 3 years.
Why don't you just go on his page and look at the numbers? I think he knows what he's doing. I take back... you're on another level. You're on a whole nother level.
So most of the people in this industry, they say 5 to 7 years before you hit your area because people know.
And you're rocking.
Yeah, and I got some big ones.
You're rocking 7
doing all right.
digits.
It's all good. Yes,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
doing
You're
very
some
well.
7 digits in 3 years.
I'm doing very well. But you know what? For me, it's all about good people. Like I'm glad I met you. Like I hope you come and join me at Meat Market on Thursday. We'll go to Polo.
Yeah.
We'll tell Glenn to hop up the yacht when he sees us 100%.
Yeah.
For New Year's, I was pretty cool action. I'll end it with this. New Year's, a good friend of mine is members with Mara Lago, and we ended up going to Mara Lago. And so I went to Mara Lago for New Year's, and it was a great party. So they started with the Temptations, which is a little old school. Then they had the Beach Boys.
But everybody can get into it. You know what I mean?
Where? In the Mara Lago? Or?
No, I mean like the Beach Boys.
Yeah,
and
everybody.
that's
What they did was great. They had Temptations, they had Beach Boys. Then they had like that Irene Cara, like the Top Gun song.
Yeah.
Then they had the countdown, and right when the countdown ended, they had Vanilla Ice come out.
Oh, shit.
So Vanilla Ice ended it. You know, like obviously Donald Trump wasn't there, but I saw Eric, and that was great. And then from there, you know, Glenn was there and Lee was there, and we took about, I don't know, probably 50 of us to the yacht. And we're on the yacht when the sun was coming up, and then I was like, all right, I think it's time to go home.
It's time to go home. Take some Advil, right?
Time to go home, and I think it's going to be a good 2021. So,
okay, here's my deal for you.
Yes.
You got to come back in when you have more time so we can really get
absolutely,
into stuff.
man.
All right?
No, thank you for having me.
Give me your cell.
And thanks. No, I will definitely. And Sean,
'cause maybe
Sean's the man.
Yeah, Sean's the man, because maybe I might have some things for you that.
Yeah.
To
No,
sell.
let's do it, or we'll bring in other people and we'll make it fun. So
yeah.
let me know when you want me back on, and as I said, we can go in different directions with it. And
it doesn't
it's
always
all
have to
good.
be. You got to get
Business
sick
and-
of all the business all the time.
Yeah. I mean, once again, we can talk. I'm single for the first time in a long time, so
Oh, boy.
maybe we can start bringing some women in. And
Oh, boy.
we can make it like Howard Stern when he first started. Sean's
You're,
girlfriend's listening, and
you're
we
gonna
gotta go.
get Sean murdered. She will chop him up, and she will.
Sean's
chop
the
him
one
into,
texting the girls right now behind us.
She will chop him into pieces and put him in a 50-gallon drum, and you'll be gone. And she'll feed it to the alligators, and they eat the whole damn thing. By the way.
All right. So on that notion, it was a pleasure, my friend. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.